Hi guys, JT here, and today I'm bringing you some information on Fanatical's Intrigue Bundle of April 2023. To help you answer the question, should you buy it? If you would like to know more about game bundles, so feel free to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps the channel out. Anyway, let's get into this. At number 1 we have Blacksad, Under the Skin, a narrative-driven noir detective game featuring animal humanoids. This game features a ton of suspense and focus on investigations. Taking place in the 1950s, you play as John Blacksad, a detective who is also a cat. Joe Dunn, the owner of a boxing club, committed suicide, and a boxer named Bobby Yale disappears before his career-defining fight. You're hired by Joe's daughter, Sonia Dunn, to investigate the relation between these two incidents. You can decide on the personality of John through choices made in dialogue, which will affect your reaction as you interact with the various cast of characters. You can make John a corrupted detective, or one who upholds the law. Needless to say, you'll be doing a lot of talking in this game, necessary to solving the crime. You can explore the various environments peppered with clues that will allow you to put pieces together to solve the case. Finding clues also give access to new dialogue choices to question potential suspects. There are also quick time events where you have to react quickly or face certain doom. When you die, you can simply restart the scene again like in Telltale's The Walking Dead. In terms of your detective skills, you can look around and observe suspicious items as well as use your cat senses to find unusual smells, listen carefully to a sound, or highlight things. Combining clues will yield new results. It isn't too difficult, so you can move the narrative along. Although this game has a slow start, this game tells a unique story in a unique world with an interesting main character. So if you like narrative-heavy games, definitely give this a go. At number 2 we have Agatha Christie, Hercule Poirot, The First Cases. In this game, you play as a young police officer who investigates the theft at the Van der Bosch family home. Hercule Poirot, the legendary detective, leaves a lasting impression on a young Angeline Van der Bosch. And some years later, she invites him to a celebratory reception at their manor to figure out who's behind some blackmail letters. Unfortunately, things take a turn for the worse when a murder occurs, and the killer is hidden among the guests. You must collect evidence and combine information to light your path to the truth. The gameplay loop is based on the creation and completion of mind maps. After investigating rooms and interrogating suspects, you collect your truths into notes and work on connecting two pieces of data to form another piece of information until you have enough information to answer your question. The game plays out more as a visual novel than a typical adventure game, and is suitable for players who are more interested in the story and simple logic puzzles. While the game's story is enjoyable, the characters' roles and designs are underutilized and feel quite predictable. Despite the missed opportunity, the twists and turns that determine the course of the case are paced well and keep players engaged. Overall, Agatha Christie, Hercule Poirot, The First Cases is a good game that captures the thrill of mystery solving to varying degrees of success. At number 3 we have Syberia II, the third entry into the Syberia Games series. If you bought this game when it was first released, it would have been 13 years since the last release of the second game. Syberia III doesn't provide any recap, so you're left to figure out what's happening on your own. The story follows Kate Walker, who embarks on an aimless journey to help the Yokel, a group of diminutive nomads migrating with their snow ostriches. She's also running her law firm and a private investigator, which adds to the confusing mess of a story. Along the way, she meets an array of trite characters, including evil hypnotists, a curmudgeonly inventor, a drunk ship captain, and a whole race of noble savages. The writing exacerbates the problem, as the dialogue is full of bizarre word choices, appalling delivery, and occasionally even wrong information. While the game tries to do interesting things with dialogue, allowing you to choose Kate's tone and pick options to manipulate characters, the move to 3D has done the game no favors. The environments are often plain and ugly, and navigating them is a terrible chore. Even the puzzles, which involve satisfyingly mechanical and mostly logical conundrums, suffer from notable problems and bugs. Overall, Syberia III feels creaky, dated, and surprisingly rushed. At number 4 we have Murder Mystery Machine, a game that lets you play as police rookie Cass, who works with burnt-out detective Nate to investigate crime scenes and solve murders. The game has 8 cases, each with 5 locations to investigate, and an overarching story that ties them all together. As you progress through the cases, you'll uncover clues and connect them to help you solve the case. The game presents every location in an isometric view, and you can rotate it to look for hidden clues. When you find a clue, it appears as a node on your working board, and you can switch to it at any point. The game allows you to connect clues and unlock new dialogue sequences with characters that often provide more information on the case. There's a hint system available to show you the next logical step, but using it lowers your score for the scene. While the gathering and linking clues is intuitive, challenging, and rewarding, the gameplay becomes repetitive over time. The story is also disappointingly linear, which makes the gameplay feel a little bit inconsequential at times. The graphics in Murder Mystery Machine are not impressive, and a lack of voice acting makes the dialogue have less personality. However, the game's interesting interconnected storyline and the nifty clue-filled isometric locations are likely enough to keep you interested. Overall, Murder Mystery Machine is a solid whodunit game that puts you in charge of solving interconnected cases, but it could have been a great one if it had branching paths and higher stakes. And number 5 we have Agatha Christie, The ABC Murders. In The ABC Murders, a video game adaptation of Agatha Christie's short story, you once again take on the role of Inspector Hercule Poirot to solve a series of murders. The game begins with Poirot receiving a letter that taunts him about a murder that is going to happen soon. A shopkeeper is subsequently murdered, with an ABC railway guide left open to the relevant section at the crime scene. Poirot must search for clues hidden around the beautiful environments and solve puzzles to unlock further evidence. After gathering crucial evidence, Poirot sends for one of the suspects or important figures in the case, and interrogates them to obtain further information. These interrogations can be challenging, as Poirot has different ways of framing questions, and your goal is to choose the most Poirot-esque one. Once you have gathered enough information, you use a flowchart to make deductions about the crime, and ultimately identify the culprit. Although the game's puzzles are not difficult, there's a satisfying feeling when you solve them. The game's aesthetic is gorgeous, resembling a pseudo-hand-drawn style, and the game mechanics borrow heavily from Frogware's work with Holmes. Overall, the game is a delightful mystery adventure, and I would recommend it for people who are really into investigative murders. And number 6 we have Amerzone, The Explorer's Legacy. In this game, you take on the role of a journalist on a quest to save a rare and mysterious species of bird. This unique adventure game combines traditional puzzle mechanics with a fresh goal not typically found in video games. Developed by Microids, the same team that created the popular Syberia series, Amerzone features a blend of fact and fiction to create an immersive and atmospheric experience. Set in the early 1990s, the game follows in the footsteps of explorer Alexandre Villebois, who was discredited after a failed expedition into the Amerzone region in 1932. He enlists you to prove the existence of the white birds and redeem his reputation. The game is filled with other strange and colorful flora and fauna, presented through the exploration journal of Alexandre. As you explore the unique location of the Amerzone, you'll encounter individual screens that you can interact with and collect items from. These items can be used to unlock new content for your story path or to keep the hydrofloat vehicle operational, which is your primary means of travel. Puzzle aspects are a major part of the game, with a focus on item collecting and environmental puzzles. Overall, Amerzone, The Explorer's Legacy offers an interesting story and plot, great character development, and plenty of puzzle variety. Its blend of real and imagined elements, along with its connections to the Syberia franchise, make it a classic adventure game that is worth exploring. And number 7 we have Syberia, the first entry into the Syberia series of point-and-click adventure games. The game follows the story of Kate Walker, a lawyer sent to Valladolid to oversee the transfer of an automaton toy factory. The game starts off a bit slow, but the story becomes more intriguing as Kate discovers an heir who has gone missing, and sets out to find him. Along the way, she must solve puzzles, help various characters, and escape danger. The gameplay is classic point-and-click, with beautiful scenes to explore and items to collect. The puzzles are challenging and satisfying to solve, although some require backtracking, which can be tedious. The visuals are impressive for the time, and the music is especially noteworthy, with melancholy strings and masterful scores that enhances the game's old-world charm. However, one downside to the modern digital versions of Syberia is that it crashes in higher resolution, which can be frustrating for players. Overall, Syberia is a timeless masterpiece, and a genre-defining game that any fan of the adventure, puzzle genre, or story-driven games should consider playing. If you're a fan of point-and-click adventure games, Syberia is definitely worth checking out. And number 8 we have Syberia II, a point-and-click adventure game. The game is the sequel to the successful Syberia, and continues the story of New York lawyer Kate Walker on her quest to find the mythical land of Syberia. The gameplay is similar to the first game, with no chance of getting stuck or getting murdered, so there's no need to worry about constantly saving progress. The focus is on the story and puzzles, with Kate exploring the snowy wastelands of the east and interacting with people and objects to progress through the game. The puzzles in Syberia II are a good mix of logical and complicated challenges, with the balance being just right so they don't become too difficult to solve. However, there are some areas that require unnecessary backtracking, which can slow down the pace of the game. The graphics are beautiful for its age, but there are some compatibility issues with modern PCs, which can be solved by resizing the desktop resolution. Overall, Syberia II is an enjoyable experience, but is not recommended to play without having played the first game. While there's a recap video available, it's better to experience the full story to fully appreciate the sequel. And number 9 we have The Descendant, a 5-episode sci-fi adventure game that takes place long after the bombs have fallen and the last of humanity survives cryogenically in fallout shelters, or ARCs. You play as Donnie, a janitor who's dragged across the wastelands by a glory-hound senator to investigate the unresponsive ARC-01. As your journey takes you deeper into the unknown, answers unfold in the past, where janitors Mia and Silas struggle to keep the last survivors alive during a series of catastrophes. Though divided by time, it seems something has always been watching them, and it'll do whatever it can to complete its mission. The cast is well written, subtly diverse, and full of conflict, ideal for a game such as this. And while Donnie is the de facto hero, it's actually Mia who becomes the most notable, due to her intentions erring more towards selfish than noble. The Descendant's minimal cast and claustrophobic setting make for an intimate experience, pulling the best from a lot of high-concept, low-budget rentals, ropey line delivery and all. As an adventure game, most of the interactions come from clicking on observational hotspots and solving puzzles, the latter of which are extremely varied, ranging from easy algebra and simple construction to multi-stage brain teasers. Nothing is repeated, though the better ones tend to involve the Descendants. Make a mistake, take too long, or get too curious, and someone's life support gets switched off. However, what frustrates players the most is that the Descendant has no sense of spread or pacing, hoarding all of the best ideas for one episode and leaving the next running dry. The opening acts are relatively low on interactivity, with the story confined to a handful of reused locations, each one aesthetically different over time. The Descendant is an engaging tale of survival and maddening paranoia, but it's a story determined to be told with or without your input, and it completely lacks the complexity of the Telltale Games formula. And number 10 we have Still Life, an adventure game. In Still Life, you play as FBI agent Victoria Macpherson, hot on the trail of a brutal serial killer. As the body count rises and disturbing crime scenes pile up, Victoria discovers that her own grandfather faced a similar case 75 years ago. The game is a point-and-click adventure game, and everything is handled with the mouse. The gameplay is challenging but intuitive, with a context-sensitive cursor that changes into a speech bubble when you hover over a person and a magnifying glass when you hover over something interesting. The graphics are impressive for its time, with pre-rendered backgrounds and full 3D characters that can look out of place against the detailed backdrops. The story is the best part of Still Life, and is fleshed out with full motion video sequences that fit the game nicely. The game is not for younger gamers, as there's plenty of blood and nudity. The puzzles are challenging but sometimes obscure, and the game is very linear, so if you get stuck in one spot, you won't be able to progress at all. The audio is decent, with good voiceovers and suitable music that adds to the creepy atmosphere. Still Life brings some nice aspects to the table, but at the end of the day, it's hardly revolutionary. The game is not very long, with only 7 chapters, and the ending doesn't tie up all of the loose ends. Despite its flaws, Still Life is a fun game, and there's definitely room for the sequel, which we'll talk about next, to iron out the kinks. And number 11 we have Still Life II, the sequel to the 2005 hit game Still Life. The game is about a serial killer who abducts women and tortures them to death. The killer records his vile deeds on videotape and mails them to the police and the media. In the game, you control 2 different characters in the same time frame. The main character is FBI agent Victoria Macpherson, who is arrogant, stern, and generally unlikable. And the other character is a television news journalist named Paloma Hernandez. Paloma is kidnapped by the killer, and Vic must find and rescue her. The action switches back and forth between Vic's formal investigation and Paloma's desperate efforts to survive the sadistic games the killer puts her through. The game takes place in a dilapidated old house deep in the woods, which is heavily fortified and effectively cut off from the rest of the world. Most of the story is presented in drab and grey rooms, much like a prison or military bunker. The outdoor scenery is very detailed and quite realistic, but the lavish areas from the first game are missed. The audio visuals are quite nice, and the characters are well designed and move fluidly, but there are several gameplay elements that may be off-putting to some adventure gamers. For instance, there are many time sequences that force the player to reload the game after each failure. Also, there are many ways to die in the game, so frequent saving is advisable, to avoid having to replay large segments of the game. Overall, most of the puzzles are logical and fun, especially those involving Vic's field kit. The game has a few technical glitches, and some of the puzzles can be challenging to solve. The inventory system is a pain. Vic and Paloma can only carry a few items at a time, and they must store unused items in lockers and cabinets. But if you're into point-and-click adventure games, this game will be a treat. And that's all for this bundle. This bundle is actually pretty awesome if you're a classic adventure game fan. Even though quite a few of them are older games, a good story is never one to age. Anyway, if you want to buy me a cup of coffee and support the channel, you can do that by clicking on the link in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.